Good evening. Let us begin very simply, very quietly. My peace I give unto you. That, my friends, is not a sentence to be framed on a wall. It is not a fragment of sacred literature to be admired at a distance. It is a living promise. It is an announcement now, in this room, in your own being. When you stop to think of what that really means, you begin to sense that peace does not come because you learn how to strain for it, or because you master some new trick of willpower. Peace is not achieved. Peace is given. Peace is received when the presence we name I am is consciously contacted. Now that is our premise for the evening. We are not here to put another project on the mind. We are not here to manufacture a mood. We are here to receive, to open, to make contact with that which is already within you, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. The moment contact is made, the moment the I of your own being is acknowledged, peace presents itself. It is not too difficult to touch it now. The difficult thing begins an hour later, when the mind resumes its arguments, its fears, its planning, and tries once more to sit in the governor's chair. Never forget that. The touch of peace is not hard. The continuity of peace is where our discipline must come in. So the question that must concern us tonight is this: how do we move from repeating words about peace to hearing an inner assurance of peace? How do we shift from faith on the tongue to evidence in the soul? Because a great many of us can say, "My peace I give unto you," and say it sincerely, and yet still pace the floor. We can say, "I am is here," and still live as if abandoned. And when you stop to think of it, you begin to realize that the missing element is not sincerity, not desire, not effort. The missing element is conscious contact, felt, recognized, received. I am going to ask you, therefore, not to take this as a vague inspiration, but as a measurable experiment. Tonight we are going to reason a little. Then we will illustrate what I mean so you can see it in terms of your own day. And then, for a few moments, we will be still and listen within. And you will discover that repeating the word I can be more than a mantra. It can become a doorway. If you will let it, that I will begin to say itself within you, not as a phrase you push out, but as a presence that pushes in, quietly, tenderly, with authority. That is the work of this hour. Not to improve the mind, but to yield the mind. Not to build a tower to heaven, but to let heaven speak here. Peace is received, tonight, through conscious contact with I am. And then, as we shall see, we learn how to remember. Now stop to think of this very simply. When peace seemed to vanish in you, was it always because circumstances grew worse? Or was it, more often than not, because attention slipped away from the presence? You can verify this for yourself without anyone's testimony. There were days when the bank book looked the same, the body felt the same, the household was the same, and yet peace drained out. Why? And there were other hours when nothing outward had changed, and yet, in a quiet moment, you breathed, you turned within, you said nothing more than I, and the atmosphere softened. What changed? Not the world, your contact. This is the diagnosis I offer you, without sentimentality and without blaming. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Where the Spirit of the Lord is not consciously realized, there is mortality, restlessness, fear, pressure. Where there is little or no God presence or God power acknowledged, the human catalog appears. Sin, disease, lack, loneliness, grief, uncertainty. These do not prove that God is cruel or absent from the universe. They prove only an absence of God in conscious awareness. And when you stop to think of it, if God were fully present as the human scene is commonly experienced, in the suffering of our hospitals, in the crushing poverty of our cities, in the wars, in the broken households, you would be in the horrible position of blaming God for our ills. You would have to attribute every disaster to deity. And you know within yourself that cannot be the nature of the one who is life itself. Therefore, the only honest conclusion is this: what we are beholding is the world of absence, not the world of realized presence. Now again, do not pass this by as a doctrine. Test it. Look back over a week. Note those very hours you called no peace. Ask, was it because I did not try hard enough? Or was it because I forgot to make the contact? We do not fail for lack of sincerity or industry. We suffer because, for that hour, we lived as if self-contained, mind-governed, separated. The mind starts to plan, to fear, to argue, to project, and peace leaks out. Not because peace is gone, but because attention is gone. After enough years of it, you see so much of it that you know definitely. As soon as a contact with God is established, harmony begins, quietly at first, to reassert itself. Sometimes it is dramatic. Pain stops, a door opens, a letter arrives. More often it is gentle. The pressure lifts, the argument stops inside. Courage returns to the heart, and the very same body, the very same office, the very same family feels different because another presence is now the atmosphere. Where the spirit is realized, there is liberty. Where the spirit isn't realized, there is mortality. Remember this: what you call no peace is not a verdict on you. It is a bell. It rings to say, you have wandered from contact. Don't allow the mind to interpret that bell as condemnation. Let it be a cue. In that very moment, turn. Acknowledge. Even a whispered "I," meant, not mouthed, begins the return. And with that acknowledgement, the gift that was never withdrawn is felt again. Now, from that whispered "I" to assurance in the soul, there is a very clear road. When we first come to this way, we come with words on the tongue. We say, "My peace I give unto you." We say, "I and the Father are one." We say it often. We say it sincerely. But it still is in the realm of faith. It is a beautiful beginning, not to be despised. Faith must come first, because, when you stop to think of it, no one keeps at a thing they don't in some measure believe. Faith is the lantern we carry into a dark room, but a lantern is not the sunrise. Again, why does mere repetition sometimes seem to leave us empty? Because the mind can imitate truth without yielding to it. The lips can affirm peace while consciousness remains in argument. The mind, you know, can build a sentence, can borrow a scripture, can push a phrase around like furniture, and all the while the interior is tight, defended, calculating. That is not a failure of the word, it is merely that the mind is still trying to govern the experience. And the mind, as we shall see, cannot produce peace. It can recite about it, it cannot give it. Then, as we persist, evidences appear, what, in modern language, are called demonstrations. After enough years of it, you see so much of it that you know definitely. When contact is made within, something settles without. The pulse of compulsion eases. The need to win the argument, to have the last word, quiets. An ache lifts. A fear unhooks. sleep returns. And the very same duty that looked impossible in the morning is done by afternoon without strain. Sometimes it is outward. A check comes, a physician's report changes, a door that was bolted opens. More often, it is inward. A deep exhale you did not manufacture. A stillness that does not depend on the room. A courage that is not bravado. These are evidences, not visions, not fireworks. Evidence is a settled quiet, a reduction of compulsion, a renewed ability to meet life without panic. Where the spirit is realized, liberty registers first as inward spaciousness. As these evidences begin to pile up, our convictions deepen. Faith stops guessing and starts knowing, the way a traveler knows the road after walking it many times. And then, one bright day or one quiet night, the very presence announces itself. It is unmistakable. Not heard with the ear, not seen with the eye, but known. It says within, "Fear not, I am." It says, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." It says it in your own being so tenderly, so authoritatively, that you could not doubt if you wished. That is direct knowing. That is assurance in the soul. Now, we are not here tonight to chase an experience. Don't allow the mind to make a project out of presence. We are here to consent to the shift from pushing words outward to letting the word speak within. We will begin with the familiar phrases, yes, and then we will grow quiet enough to hear the I form itself, closer than breathing, and bear its own witness of peace given. Now we must be very plain with one another. The human mind, wonderful as it is for counting, for building, for remembering, for arranging, cannot of itself give you peace. When you stop to think of it, the mind itself is a finite instrument. It measures, it compares, it anticipates. It cannot embrace the infinite. Therefore, it cannot author the peace that flows only from contact with infinity. Paul very clearly states that the natural man receiveth not the things of God. Why? Because it requires a different faculty than the faculty of the human mind. Spirit cannot be taken hold of by a hand, cannot be proven to an eye, cannot be tasted on the tongue, cannot be captured by a microphone. God cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled. If your proof is confined to those 5 windows, you are bound to live in uncertainty. And uncertainty is the seed of unrest. Now, let me illustrate that. Not long ago we read of a distinguished scholar, a brilliant man whose mind had lectured from Oxford to the great halls of Europe. His subject matter spanned the classics, philosophy, science. Then, the physician placed before him that stark word, incurable. And what did that marvelous mind do at the peak of its training? It looked straight ahead and saw annihilation. It wrote of oblivion. It confessed that, beyond the boundaries of sense and calculation, there was nothing it could grasp. Do you condemn the man? Don't. Sympathize. He was honest. He took the tools he had, and he used them to the edge of their reach, and they did not reach beyond mortality. That is not wickedness. That is limitation. The mind, left to itself, finds only the end of the mind. Again, remember this. Peace is not the product of an argument won, a budget balanced, or a prognosis improved. Those may come, and we are grateful. But peace precedes them and does not depend on them. Peace is the atmosphere of God realized. It isn't formulated, it is felt. And since God cannot be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled, the avenue by which peace enters is not sensory, not analytic. It is intuitional. It is spiritual discernment. It is inner listening. It is the awakening of a faculty higher than thought, yet never opposed to true thought. Far from making you dreamy or dull, it clarifies you. It quiets the clatter so that intelligence can be inspired, decisions can be illumined, and action can be effortless. The artist knows a measure of this. The inventor knows a measure of this. They must, in their best moments, touch a source of inspiration within themselves that no slide rule can produce. It is here we prepare ourselves for a very simple practice. We are going to use the word I, not as ego, never that, but as doorway. The I that is life itself. The I that said, I am with you always. The I that is the core and governor of mind and body. As we rest in that I, we rise above the surface of thought without slipping into trance or passivity. We become keen, not dull, awake, not agitated, receptive, not suggestible. Don't allow the mind to resent this. You were not given over to be the victim of your mind. You were given dominion. And in that dominion, you can instruct the mind to be still a moment, while another within, the true I of your being, speaks peace to you. Where the Spirit of the Lord is realized, there is liberty. Where it is not realized, there is mortality. We are crossing that threshold by awakening the faculty that can know the unseen and receive what the senses cannot deliver. Peace. Now the doorway we are speaking of is very simple. The word I. Not the personal boastful I of pride. Not the little I that says, see what I have done. The I of which we speak is life itself individualized. Life itself is God. Something that the Master called I. That I is life. When you stop to think of it, you quickly see how practical this is. You have a body, but you are not a body. You have a mind, but you are not a mind. If it is my body, then I am not that body. If it is my mind, then I am not that mind. The owner is not the thing owned. The governor is not the instrument governed. It is that I, the indwelling presence, the life that is closer to you than your next breath, that can rest even while the mind is active and the body is employed. Again, this is not semantics. It is dominion. I have a body. This body is mine to steward, not my tyrant to obey. I have a mind. This mind is mine to employ, not my master to fear. Never forget that. You were given dominion, not over your neighbor, not over the world, but over the mind and over the body. Don't allow the mind to dictate the terms of your peace. Don't allow the body to announce your identity by its sensations of the hour. The I of your being assigns the mind to its task and the body to its function, and then abides in peace because the source of its peace is not in them at all. Now let me illustrate that. A thought rushes in, anxious, fast, persuasive. It argues the future. It rehearses the past. It presents evidence and counter-evidence. And soon there is an inner courtroom with no judge, only attorneys shouting. That is what unrest feels like. Argument without a governor. In that very moment, step back an inch into the I. Say within, not loudly, but with authority, "This is my mind. Be still a moment." You will notice, try it and see, that something in you stands up. There is a pivot, a quiet shift of center. The argument weakens because it has met its governor. The mind was not silenced by force. It was gently placed back in its rightful office. The I does not argue with thoughts. It ends the inner argument by presence. That, you will discover, is the beginning of liberty. Where the Spirit of the Lord is realized, the debate subsides, and judgment returns to the one who judges not by appearances. Do not confuse this I with self-will. Self-will strives and shouts. The I we mean speaks as gift. Listen to its tone. My peace I give unto you. Not earned, given. The moment you abide as I, the command changes to a benediction. It does not hand you a task list, it imparts an atmosphere. I and my Father are one is not a slogan, it is the description of identity. And from that oneness, the inner voice continues, I will never leave you nor forsake you. I go before you to make the crooked places straight. It says it within your own being, and because it is your own I saying it, you can receive it. When identity shifts from mind and body to the indwelling I, dominion returns, and peace becomes receivable. You do not take it, you let it come. You do not fabricate it, you recognize it. Acquaint now thyself with him, and be at peace. Now let me illustrate that. You have a quiet moment, perhaps here, perhaps at home before the light is out, and you turn within. You say, I, softly, and there is that lift, that easement, that sense of presence not manufactured, but present. The air in the room hasn't changed, the furniture hasn't changed, but you have changed seats, from mind to I. Peace is felt as given. Then, an hour later, the phone lights up, a headline flashes across a screen, a memory crawls out of an old closet, the body gives a little twinge, or a figure in the checkbook steps forward with a frown. Notice what happens. The mind, very helpfully, very busily, rushes in to take charge. It begins to explain, to forecast, to argue. It lines up evidence and counter-evidence. It consults with fear. It confers with yesterday. And almost without noticing it, you have re-enthroned thought. The governor's chair is occupied again by the mind, and peace, which had been present, seems to drain away. Now stop to think. Did the news steal your peace? Did the twinge steal your peace? No, those are occasions. The culprit is this. You let the mind speak as if it were the authority. An hour ago you were saying within, this is my mind, be still a moment. And the I stood up. Now you are saying, mind, take over, by listening to it as judge and jury. And when the mind sits as judge, it must judge by appearances. It must judge by what can be seen, heard, tasted, touched, or smelled. And since spirit cannot be registered on those instruments, the verdict is always uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds unrest. Where the spirit is not realized, there is mortality. Again, notice the contrast inside. One state is this. The lips say, I have peace, but the interior is arguing. You are mouthing a benediction while running a trial. That is not contact. That is the mind trying to fix the mind with a phrase. The other state is this. You pause. You do not hurry to win the point. You do not bargain with the symptom. You do not negotiate with the balance sheet. You step back an inch into I. Even in a hallway, even at a desk, even in a store, you let the word I rise, not thrown outward, but allowed within. You wait, just a breath longer than the mind wants you to, until presence is felt again. It may be the faintest inner assurance at first. It may be only the release of compulsion, but it is something not manufactured. And then you will note, after enough years of watching it, you know definitely, that the weather does not have to change for the atmosphere within to clear. Where the Spirit of the Lord is realized, liberty returns. It isn't too difficult to touch peace in a quiet room. The difficult thing begins an hour later. Remembering, without strain. Not turning remembrance into a clenched project. Not repeating words with gritted teeth. Just the gentle refusal to let the mind be the governor, and the equally gentle consent to let I be I within you. Never forget that. Don't allow the mind to make a project out of presence. A glance Godward, so to speak, an inward lean, a soft I, and you are back in the seat that was yours all along. Therefore, we must be practical. If peace disappears when the mind resumes authority, then peace remains when the I is remembered as the inner governor. And since forgetting is the ordinary human habit, we need a simple, measurable, repeatable way to remember, so that peace is not accidental, not occasional, but continuous by contact. We will take that up next. Now we become very practical. We are not going to add another burden to the mind. We are going to give the mind a servant's post and the heart a simple rule. The plan is threefold. First, the day begins with 10 to 15 minutes of conscious recognition. Second, we make that practice at first an hourly one. Brief stops, not long prayers, not strain, just returning. Third, before sleep, we acknowledge again and hand the day back to the I. That is the scaffold by which peace, given freely, becomes stable by remembrance. In the morning, before the world rushes in, sit quietly. No bargaining, no shopping list, no attempt to fix a single person or event. Just recognition. I and the Father are one. My peace I give unto you. Then pause. Let the mind be instructed. This is my mind. Be still a moment. Feel, even faintly, the inner atmosphere soften. Acquaint now thyself with him, and be at peace. 10 minutes of this recognition does more for the day than an hour of argument later. You are not arming yourself to fight. You are consenting to be governed before you move. Then, hourly. What does hourly mean? It does not mean kneeling in corridors or shutting the door on business. It means a brief return. 2 breaths. 10 seconds. A soft inward, I. Not pushed outward, but allowed within, until you sense the pivot. The inner air clears an inch, the compulsion loosens, the governor is back in his chair. Use the clock, the change of task, the stretch between calls as your cue. Don't allow the mind to say, there isn't time. There is time for 10 seconds. If there isn't time for 10 seconds, there isn't time for intelligence either. Stop. Return. Let I be I within you. By the degree of one's success in remembering, one can measure the rate of their spiritual progress. Not by visions, not by eloquence, but by remembrance. How many hours pass before you remember? How quickly do you pivot from argument to I? After enough weeks of this, you know definitely. The gaps shorten. The returns are easier. The atmosphere holds longer. If you forget an hour, never condemn. That bell only says, begin again, now. The practice is the proof. Set this guardrail firmly. Never use remembrance to fix the world. Don't allow the mind to turn I into a lever for results. Use remembrance to yield the world to God. Peace first, Guidance second. Seek the presence, not an outcome. When peace is felt, action will be illumined. Words will be given. Doors will open or close without your strain. But if you rush to guidance without peace, you are back to consulting fear and calling it wisdom. And then, before sleep, close the day as you opened it. Turn within. Acknowledge, I, at the center of my being, am the life of me, the peace of me. Hand the day back. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Let that assurance be the last word, not the news, not the symptom, not the ledger. If you wake in the night, do not start a trial. Whisper I, and rest in the presence that does not sleep. It isn't too difficult to touch peace tonight. The difficult thing begins an hour later. But with morning recognition, hourly return, and before sleep acknowledgement, forgetting loses its throne, remembrance gains it, and peace, gifted, holds. Never forget that. Stop, even for 10 seconds, and return to the I. Where the Spirit of the Lord is realized, liberty remains. Now, for a few moments, let us meditate. Sit easily. If it is comfortable, let the eyes close. Let the body be as it is, no fixing, no improving. Let the breath be as it is, no counting, no managing. Let the mind be as it is. Even if it chatters, let it chatter, but do not follow. You are not the body you have. You are not the mind you have. You, the I of you, will simply rest and listen. Softly now, within yourself, barely a whisper inside, say, I, and do not push it. Again, I. Not loudly, not as effort, but as if you were hearing an I rise from within you. Pause between them, a little space. I. And listen. We are not trying to make something happen. We are consenting to hear what is already true. As you pause, notice what begins to show itself, not as spectacle, but as atmosphere. It may be quiet, or a warmth behind the chest, or a simple okayness without words, or a sense of roominess, spaciousness, as if the interior has more sky in it. Do not reach for it. Wait. I. And listen. The repetition is only to steady the attention until the listening begins. Now, as you listen, let the inner voice, tender and sure, speak in the first person. Not theatrical. From within your own being, let it say, I will never leave you, nor forsake you. Pause and receive that. I. Be still and know that I am God. I go before thee to make the crooked places straight. My peace I give unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Let those lines be heard, not recited. Heard, as if life itself were assuring you from the center. If thoughts interrupt, plans, memories, critiques, do not fight. Fighting is more mind. Simply turn, like a leaf turning to the sun. I. And listen. Let the interruption dissolve in the presence you are welcoming. If a feeling rises, an ache, an itch, a tug of worry, do not analyze. I. And listen. The I within you governs the mind and the body. Quietly say, "This is my mind." Be still a moment. Then, return to listening. Where the Spirit of the Lord is realized, liberty, ease, spaciousness reappears. Again, let the assurances form within as gift. I am with you always. I am thy life. I am thy peace. Fear not. I am. Hear them as your own innermost truth, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. Let them do their work. No pushing, no bargaining, just receiving. Now, let gratitude arise, not to an outside power, but as a thank you to the I that has met you within. Thank you. Accept that peace is already given. Let it rest upon you and within you as the natural climate of your being. Seal it by a final, unforced listening. I, and a soft Amen of the heart. When you open your eyes, do so gently, keeping a thread of this listening alive, knowing you can return in a breath. You have been met within. Carry the gift quietly. Now we carry the gift into the night. Be very simple with yourself. When you stop to think of it, the mind does its loudest work in the dark. When the house is quiet. When the body speaks a little more audibly. When yesterday and tomorrow line up at the foot of the bed to be heard. Don't allow that to alarm you. The mind is only trying to reclaim the throne it held for years. Normalize it. Expect it. And then refuse it. Gently. Not by fight, not by diagnosis, but by contact. Here is the immediate rule. Do not argue with fear. Do not explain it. Do not dramatize it. The instant you argue, you enthrone the mind. The instant you explain, you give it reality. Instead, return to I. Softly, inwardly, even in the middle of a pounding thought, say, I. And wait. This is my mind. Be still a moment. Then, I. Again. We are not pushing fear away. We are reestablishing presence. Where the Spirit of the Lord is realized, there is liberty. Where the Spirit of the Lord isn't realized, there is mortality, pressure, restlessness. Fear is not a personal failure. It is a bell. It rings to tell you that contact has lapsed. Let the bell do its work. Turn. Now let me illustrate that. You wake at 2 a.m. A twinge in the body speaks. A memory walks in, uninvited. The mind rises, briefs in hand, eager to conduct a trial. In that very second, step back an inch. Don't fix the body with thought. Don't rehearse the memory. Don't bargain. And wait. Let the phrases you already proved tonight speak from within, not from the lips. I am with you always. My peace I give unto you. I go before thee to make the crooked places straight. Hear them, receive them. If the mind interrupts, do not fight. Say again, this is my mind. Be still a moment and listen. After enough years of it, you see so much of it that you know definitely. As soon as a contact with God is established, even in the night, the pressure begins to ease. Sometimes you fall back to sleep like a child. Sometimes you lie awake, quiet, unafraid. And that too is peace. Before sleep, make a simple closure. No projects, no lists. Acknowledge, thank you. Your peace is here. I rest in you. Let that be the last word that crosses the threshold of consciousness. If you wake again, let that be the first word that greets you. I. And a quiet listening. And expect evidence. Not fireworks. Evidence. Peace tonight is a seed. Tomorrow you may notice that you do not reach for the last word. You may notice that the same task meets you without compulsion. A choice that looked tangled appears clear. The body, which demanded a verdict last night, is simply reported to and governed. These are demonstrations, not manufactured by mind, but resulting from presence. Remember, never make a project out of getting rid of fear. Recontact. Let peace reassert itself as the gift it is. Acquaint now thyself with him, and be at peace. Where the spirit is realized, liberty remains. Thank you.